What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. We have only a few weeks to go until the regular season begins and the preseason is over, and you won't find a bigger fan of watching third stringers and practice squad guys going at it for the right to make their dream come true of making the NFL roster. But when you go half the year without watching any football, the first preseason game, when you turn it on, it kind of feels a little bit like the Super Bowl. But once you get 30 minutes into a preseason game, you start seeing all of this bad quarterback play, the sloppy offense. It wears off the excitement, and it makes you ready just to skip straight to week one. The thing that's odd is how, as the season seems to get closer, it comes so slowly. Because it felt like just yesterday, NFL free agency just happened. The NFL draft just happened. And with how long the NFL offseason is, you ever wonder if the season ever is going to get here. And the closer it gets, the longer it seems to take. And although I'm not the biggest Cowboy fan in the world, I get tired of seeing them push down everybody's throats in these primetime games that they seem to play in every week that they don't belong in. You know, I'm ready to watch them open up the season against the Eagles on Thursday night. I'm ready to watch the Chiefs and Chargers on Friday night. And more importantly, I'm ready to see the Steelers contend for a Super Bowl this year with Aaron Rodgers at the helm. The Steelers are dark horse Super Bowl contenders. It's not being talked about at all how the Steelers' quarterback struggles has been the only thing that's kept them from having success in the postseason. That includes Big Ben not playing well in his final two playoff games. Did y'all forget that Ben Roethlisberger in that 2020 playoff game and against the Browns in the wild card, he had 4 interceptions in that game. He had like 5 total turnovers. Most of them occurred on the Steelers' first offensive possessions. Hell, the first play of that game that the Steelers had the ball was a fumble that the Browns scored 6 points off in their own end zone. Big Ben just was not good in his last 2 playoff games, and it never gets brought up. Then you get to the last 2 years the Steelers have lost in the first round of the playoffs. They had to play Josh Allen with Mason Rudolph. Then the following year, they're going up against Lamar, who should have won MVP, who was a first-team All-Pro for a third time in his career with a washed Russell Wilson. The AFC is home to aliens at quarterback. 4 out of the 5 best quarterbacks in the National Football League reside in this conference. 2 of them the Steelers share a division with. You are out of your mind if you thought Mike Tomlin ever had a shot at winning in the playoffs the past 2 years with the disadvantage the Steelers have gone into these playoff games with at quarterback. It's a quarterback-driven league. You need solid quarterback play to have a shot at making a deep playoff run, and that's what Aaron Rodgers is going to bring to the Steelers. He has the lowest percentage of interceptions in the history of the NFL. If you lined up every quarterback that's ever played in this league and you asked them to throw 500 passes against a live defense without throwing a single interception, Aaron Rodgers is going to win the competition. He takes care of the football. He doesn't lose the Steelers games at quarterback. Aaron Rodgers isn't what he used to be. You don't have to scream that at me. I understand that. We all get that Aaron Rodgers is about to be 42. He's on his last leg. He's on his way out of the league. He doesn't have the mobility that he used to have. The Steelers don't need him to be in his prime. Aaron Rodgers is going to a situation that's not asking him to be Superman. They're not asking him to be the Batman. They're asking him, hey, Aaron, can you give us solid quarterback play? Can you give us good enough quarterback play that our offense can be somewhat effective throwing the football? Can you make sure that you take care of the football, that you don't have our defense back on the field 45 seconds after getting the Gatorade because we either gone 3 and out or turned the football over? Even if Aaron Rodgers is washed to you, he's better than the last 4 quarterbacks the Steelers have had, which includes Big Ben, his final 2 years in the league. He couldn't even throw a pass more than 20 yards downfield. They were running a dink and dunk offense that got shut down the final 6-7 weeks of that season. Mike Tomlin has won 9 games with quarterbacks that would have gotten a lot of coaches fired. He has the best record in NFL history with backup quarterbacks, low-hanging fruit at quarterback. You give him Aaron Rodgers that still has top 15 play in him, I hate to see how far that gets Pittsburgh. You can harp on how the defense is never good. The defense is never good because they get worn out throughout the season due to how bad the offense is that they have to carry. When the Steelers' most reliable weapon on offense, their MVP on offense for over the last 3 years, is their kicker, Chris Boswell, you have problems. You have a quarterback problem. You can't go to a Super Bowl with bad quarterback play, with below average quarterback play. It's not the early 2000s. You don't have the ability to win with a Brad Johnson, a Joe Flacco, or a Trent Dilfer anymore. You at least need to be in the top 15, the top half of the league in quarterback play to give your team a fair shot in the postseason. And that's what Aaron Rodgers is giving the Steelers this year. A guy who had 28 touchdowns, more than Josh Allen, more than Patrick Mahomes, is considered washed due to narratives. Because when you watch that tape, in spite of how bad the Jets were, Aaron Rodgers wasn't a huge reason with his play on the field in a lot of the games that they lost. You don't want to admit it, though. With the defense the Steelers are going to have, with a offense that's not going to force the defense to have to carry the team, that can be somewhat efficient, that can run the football finally, have a balanced offense because people actually take the quarterback seriously. The Steelers can beat any team in the playoffs this year with Aaron Rodgers. They can beat the Ravens or the Chiefs and even the Bills, because he's going to be able to take care of the football. The defense is going to look great. They're not going to get winded. They're not going to get gassed out because of incompetent quarterback play, making the offense inefficient, which has the defense on the field for the majority of the game. Of course, you're going to get tired. Mike Tomlin finally has a quarterback that allows him to just worry about the defense. He doesn't even want to worry about offense at all. He doesn't have to. Brett Favre had the Vikings 1 game short of the Super Bowl at the age of 40. Tom Brady played well into his 40s. When you're one of the all-time greats, you still have the ability to play good football in spite of your age. Aaron Rodgers can still throw. It's not like he shot like how Peyton Manning was his final season in the league. The Steelers are going to shock the NFL this year, and I cannot wait to see it happen. There's a question that I've been getting for the last few days that I've tried to ignore because I don't really want to admit it. Rashawn Slater, who was the Chargers starting left tackle last season, he just received a massive extension, suffered a season-ending injury in training camp a few days ago. And if you didn't know, I have the Chargers winning the AFC West. At least I had the Chargers winning the AFC West until this Rashawn Slater injury happened. And all my friends have been asking me, all you guys have been DMing me. It's been the most asked question that I ever got in my DMs doing this. do I still have the Chargers winning the AFC West in spite of the Rashawn Slater injury? I have to say no. You may say that I'm switching up on the Chargers, but they had arguably the best offensive line in the league due to Rashawn Slater. Not too many teams even have an elite offensive tackle. So when you have two elite offensive tackles with Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt, along with McCarthy back then, a really good interior offensive line, you're in the conversation for having an elite offensive line. Now, with Rashawn Slater gone, you have to move Joe Alt to left tackle, which I do think he has the ability to play at a high level, but are you going to get the same level out of Joe Alt at left tackle as what you would Rashawn Slater? Because sometimes switching tackle spots seems like something that should be seamless if you do it on Madden. But in real life, playing the other side of the line at tackle, a lot of folks say it's like learning how to write with your non-dominant hand. So the Chargers go from having arguably the best offensive line in the league to now a top 7, top 8 offensive line in the league, which is still very good. But when you're going up against the Denver Broncos, who had the best pass rush in the NFL last year, who had Nick Bonito coming off a breakout season, Zach Allen is starting to emerge quietly as one of the best interior defensive linemen in the league, there are going to be matchup problems that the Chargers will have when they go up against the Broncos defense this year. When you lose a starting offensive tackle, you just lost a half of game when it comes to how that game will be viewed in Vegas. At least in my opinion, that's how I would look at it if I was doing the odds, because what gets not talked about is how offensive tackle play is one of the most crucial areas of your team that you need to have play, that you need to have function at a high enough level if you want to be able to compete for a Super Bowl. There's a reason why Trent Williams is still one of the highest paid at his position in spite of being up there in age. Because once you find an elite offensive tackle, you hold on to him. You don't let him go. Because when you lose him, then the second most impactful position in football starts to take over games. That being the pass rush, that being guys like Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, and Michael Parsons. And they say that it's a passing league. And if you don't have elite offensive tackles, it complicates the ability to throw the football. Look at what happened to the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. The Broncos are the best team in the AFC West on the lines of scrimmage now with this Rashawn Slater injury that the Chargers just suffered. They have a great offensive line, doesn't have a bunch of big names on it, but they definitely are top 10 in that department. And they also have a top 5 defensive line that can get after the quarterback. Vance Joseph is one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. After this season, he probably gets another opportunity to be a head coach again. His defense has been outstanding. And also, you have Bo Nix playing under one of the greatest offensive minds in NFL history in his second season, when his rookie season statistically was one of the best in NFL history, but it got overlooked because of how far Jaden Daniels took the Washington Commanders in the postseason. But Bo Nix, if he takes a bigger step in his development this season, year 2, you're looking at somebody that could end up winning MVP this year. He already is a borderline top 10 quarterback. They gave him some more weapons at receiver. You add Evan Ingram. You got a really good duo at running back. The Broncos are going to win the AFC West this year. I'm changing my prediction. I'm not flip-flopping because I didn't make any of my predictions official yet. Until you see JT Sports 2025 NFL record predictions, none of my predictions that I've made over these last few months is locked in stone. When you get new information, you got to change your opinion. Rashawn Slater isn't healthy anymore. I'm not saying the Chargers are going to miss the playoffs. They still have a good offensive line. You just don't have a great offensive line anymore with the loss of Rashawn Slater. So instead of winning 13 games like how I thought you would initially, I got you winning 10 games, and I got the Broncos winning 12, and the Chiefs end up finishing in third place. They still make it to the playoffs, but the Broncos are going to take this division. Joe Burrow is one of the best quarterbacks of this generation. If he wants his two top weapons to be re-signed, the Bengals, it will be in their best interest to appease Joe Burrow with his demands, especially with the season that he just had last year, where he essentially played like the best quarterback in football, carrying his team where he had to be Mr. Perfect, and only didn't win MVP because his team let him down and didn't make it to the postseason due to bad defense. So with the Bengals re-signing Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, along with what they're paying Joe Burrow, all three of those guys take up over 40% of the Bengals salary cap, which means that their defense needs to have a lot of guys that they drafted pan out. Just because you think that you shouldn't pay receivers top money, at least two receivers, wide receiver one money, doesn't mean that it's impossible to win with that. You're only as good as what you have around you, regardless of how good of a quarterback you may be. You can overcome a bad offensive line and a lack of a consistent ground game if you're Joe Burrow, but you can't overcome having a bad defense, a defense that doesn't show up, a defense that if they're on the field and they have to be asked to not let a guy like Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes or any of the top quarterbacks not engineer a game-winning drive, it's a bad mission. It's a mission that's going to be resulting in a failure. Because the Bengals defense has gotten worse than what it was last season. And you probably think that there's no way how bad it was last year could get any worse. It has. You lose your top tackler and Jermaine Pratt. He's gone. Trey Hendrickson, we don't know if he's going to play this year. Looks like the Bengals don't have the means to pay him. Okay. You lost Sam Hubbard to retirement. Your defense is relying on a bunch of guys that you have drafted in the last 3 drafts, which you haven't hit on a lot of these guys. At least none of these guys have really showed a lot of promise. The only guy who has showed the upside to be a high-level player that the Bengals have drafted over the last 3-4 years has been cornerback Cam Taylor-Britt. He was exceptional 2 years ago. Last season, he completely fell off. How good is DJ Turner going to be? Because he came in and replaced Cam Taylor-Britt when he got benched at a certain point during the season. You know, what about the pass rushers that they've drafted? Like Myles Murphy, who's a former first-round pick. This guy has barely been on the field. He hasn't started a single game for the Bengals. And he's been with them for 2 years. And you're telling me that Shamar Stewart is going to fix that? Shamar Stewart had 4.5 sacks his 4 seasons in college. The production was not there for him to be a first-round pick. That's why I was laughing at the contract standoff that the Bengals were having with Shamar Stewart. Because if this was any other team, they wouldn't have even drafted Shamar Stewart in the first round. You have a very low chance of hitting on a pass rusher that has so low of production coming out of college. You spent 4 years and only have 4.5 sacks to your name. The Bengals just don't have a good eye for drafting. They are the worst team in the AFC North at drafting. The only big hits that the Bengals have had in the draft are their 3 top players that are taking up a third of the cap for a very good reason. They know that the Bengals can't drive, so they say, you know what? No matter if they get a new defensive coordinator, the personnel on the defense side of the football is so bad that we have no choice but to be perfect. Give me both of my guys back. Even if the Bengals would have traded away T. Higgins for some draft picks, do you truly believe that they would have got it right with the pick they got in exchange for him? Because history tells us otherwise. The Ravens and the Steelers blow the Bengals out of the water when it comes to drafting. Even the Browns are a tad bit better at drafting than what the Bengals are. The Bengals are not going to the playoffs this year because their drafting sucks. That's why they're a top-heavy team. It's not about trying to get the best value for positions that you don't think are impactful when it comes to being a contender, when this is the same trio that went to the Super Bowl, took down Mahomes in the process, something that only 2 quarterbacks have done since Mahomes has been starting for Kansas City. You keep that trio around. The issue isn't how much you're paying your top guys. The issue is that you're not drafting well enough. The teams that go far in the playoffs, the teams that compete for Super Bowls annually are the ones that dominate the draft. Like the Philadelphia Eagles. They can pay all of their top guys. They're paying their quarterback top 10 money. They're paying 2 receivers, wide receiver 1 money nearly. So if the Eagles can do it, why can't the Bengals? Because the Eagles have Harry Roseman, and they draft a lot better than Cincinnati. You got to have a few rookies playing well on cheap deals to maximize a Super Bowl window. And when you consistently draft well like Philadelphia has, you can afford to allocate a large part of your salary cap to a good chunk of players and still win because your younger players are playing at a high level. The Bengals can't say that. They haven't had an all-pro level player that they drafted since they took Joe Burrow. And then in the following draft, Jamar Chase after. You're not going to be a playoff team like the Bengals if you are a bona fide 7-on-7 team. Football is still won and lost on the line of scrimmage. Remember how the Eagles blasted the Chiefs in the Super Bowl a few months ago? It's because you didn't even give Patrick Mahomes a chance, because you obliterated him as soon as he got his hands on that football. Somebody was coming to clothesline Patrick Mahomes straight to hell. The Bengals don't have that. Trey Hendrickson, if you take the 17.5 sacks that he had off of the Bengals defense last year, they have the worst pass rush in the National Football League by a pretty good margin. And you can't just put all of the defensive struggles on Lou Anarumo, because 2-3 years ago, this dude was a finalist for several head coaching jobs. You don't get worse calling plays overnight. You get worse when you're unable to drive suitable replacements after you don't retain a guy like Jesse Bates, who has still played at an all-pro level for the Falcons. You let go of Von Bell. Some of the players that you did hit on in the draft, you don't retain. So for the Cincinnati Bengals, you're not going anywhere but straight to Cancun when the season concludes, because you don't draft well enough on defense to overcome spending 42% of your salary cap on your top 3 players. You can only win doing that when you're good in the draft. And the Bengals are one of the worst teams in the NFL at drafting. Al Golding is going to have his hands full trying to win with a Dollar General defense. There's not going to be a difference between him and Lou Anarumo, because the issue isn't the defensive coaching. The issue is that you don't have elite defensive personnel. There's not about any scheme in the world that Al Golden can cook up that's going to help that Bengals defense overcome the talent disadvantage that they're going into in a bunch of these games. The Bengals defense, do you see them stopping the Ravens this year? I don't think so. Do you see them stopping the Steelers offense this year? I don't think so. Do you see this Bengals defense, with how the Eagles second string was playing against them, has any shot at improving or being slightly better than what they were last year. Be honest if you're a Bengals fan, because you look at this defense and I look at this defense and we look at the misses in the draft and we look at the bad free agency signings that they've made, the reluctance to pay their top player, and you think somehow they're still going to be able to overcome that. Good luck. Especially to Al Golden. You're going to need luck and a lot more to get this defense playing good football. The Ravens are easily going to win the Super Bowl this year. They have the best pass defense in the NFL this year. I don't see any quarterback that plays the Ravens defense this year having any success at moving the football. This Ravens secondary is the most talented secondary ever assembled. Yes, they're better than the Legion of Boom. You have 3 former first-team All-Pros starting in this secondary. Marlon Humphrey, who just was an All-Pro selection this past season in the slot. Jair Alexander, who when he's on the field is a top 3 corner. You have Nate Wiggins, who has All-Pro potential, coming off a phenomenal rookie season. You have Kyle Hamilton, who's one of the best at his position. And not to forget, they drafted Malachi Starks, who was the best safety coming out of this draft. If you draft a Georgia player, they have a high chance of being a really good player in the NFL. It is really tough to see too many quarterbacks having success against this Ravens secondary unless they have high-end wide receivers. And the only team that really has a offense that has the firepower to give this Ravens secondary problems are the Cincinnati Bengals. But their big disadvantage that they have, in spite of the firepower that they have at quarterback and on the perimeter, is that their offensive line isn't good, because the Ravens pass defense isn't only good because they have a great secondary, but their defensive line has a really disrespected group of pass rushers. I argue with my homie every day. He's a Ravens fan because he thinks that the pass rush still is a big weakness that they have. Kyle Van Noy isn't a household name, so when you hear Kyle Van Noy, you think he's a mid-pass rusher. You think from the name he's a 6-8 sack guy max when he just had 12 sacks last season. Everybody seems to ignore the 10-sack season that Odafe Oweh had. We've been waiting on Odafe Oweh to break out for how many years? He finally did it, and nobody acts like it happens. Or everybody acts like it didn't happen. You have Nanadi Justabike, Matabike, who's one of the best interior defensive linemen in the league at getting after the quarterback. The Ravens have a ton of talent on their pass rush. They don't have a guy like a Myles Garrett or a TJ Watt. You would love to have that, but they have a good core of starters and a good rotation of guys behind their starters to get after the quarterback and to still be a defense that's one of the best in the league at getting after the quarterback. And then you also have a great secondary right behind that with Roquan Smith, a future first ballot Hall of Famer. Who's having success against the Ravens defense this year? The Chiefs don't have the ability to do it. The Bills don't. You're not going to see the Bengals in the postseason at all. The Ravens have won the Super Bowl this season already without a single snap of the regular season being played because of how good this secondary is. They don't need Jair Alexander to stay healthy for the course of the regular season. All they need him healthy for is January. That 4-game stretch is when Jair Alexander's health matters the most. The Ravens just need to keep him healthy for January. If I was them, I would shut him down for at least half of the season because you really don't need him. Because you still got your Dozier Wuzier right behind him, backing him up. This is about to be one of the best defenses that we have seen in over a decade. The last time we've seen a defense with this much star power was the Denver Broncos in 2015 when they won the Super Bowl. You got Lamar and you got an elite, high-powered defense. I don't see how the Ravens don't win the Super Bowl this year. I really don't. I don't understand for the life of me how the Dallas Cowboys have fans. How can you continue to support a team whose owner ends the season before you even take a single snap? The Dallas Cowboys, I thought, were going to at least be a 9-win team or better. But with all of the off-season drama that they've had going on, with Jerry Jones dragging out Michael Parsons' contract extension, you have Deron Bland who wants to get paid, and Jerry Jones seems to have no interest at all at getting his best players on a reasonable deal. Instead, he rather drag out these contract negotiations, think that he's playing chess when he's really playing tic-tac-toe and losing, and ends up having to spend a lot more money to retain these guys when he could have gotten them for way less if he wasn't so caught up in his ego. It's a shame how every season you feel like the Dallas Cowboys season is already over before it even begins. And that's how it feels like right now, because this team is just not serious. Jerry Jones cares about clicks more than he cares about the Dallas Cowboys ever winning a Super Bowl again. He defines success based off revenue. He defines success based off attention. Jerry Jones is an attention whore. He craves the spotlight. He craves all of the talk being about the Cowboys more than he cares about the Cowboys winning another Super Bowl. Ego is in the way of the Dallas Cowboys ever being a contender again. It's not Dak Prescott. It's not the talent, because they always draft really well. Even the head coach doesn't seem to be too bad. But the issue with the Cowboys is the dude that runs the complete operation. To be a championship team, you need buy-in on all levels. You need everybody on the same page. One team, one goal. Everybody in that organization doesn't prioritize the Dallas Cowboys winning. Jerry Jones doesn't put priority first of the Dallas Cowboys being a team that's good enough to win a Super Bowl. He prioritizes the amount of attention and the amount of intrigue that he can stir up to get people invested in the Cowboys. He's one of those people that believes all attention is good attention, and he loves the negative attention that the Cowboys continue to get with the bad personnel decisions that he continues to make. And what's funny is Jerry Jones is so caught up in his ego that he thinks that Eagles fans actually like him because he's good at his job. Jerry, wake up. Splash some water on your face. The Eagles only love you because you make it easy for them to dominate the division. If the Cowboys just had a halfway decent general manager, they would have been in the Super Bowl conversation years ago. Because the problem with the Cowboys never has been talent. What is the gap 1 through 5 between the Eagles and the Cowboys? Just straight off talent. Not that wide. Probably a 3 out of 5. The Cowboys have a lot of high-level players on both sides of the ball. But the issue is, this is not a disciplined team. How can you be a disciplined team when you have an owner that's constantly causing distractions, that's causing rifts in the locker room, that is dividing the spirit of his team because he cares more about hogging the attention, being the dude who gives all the credit for the Cowboys' success, that he doesn't realize that he is the reason that this team always is a laughingstock in the playoffs. What can go wrong will go wrong, in the words of Stephen A. Smith, when it comes to the Cowboys. And I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that Stephen A. Smith says, but he is right on the money when he says this about the Cowboys every single time. It is a circus. Jerry Jones cares more about running the clown show, getting your attention, getting your clicks, because he's an attention whore that doesn't care about assembling a winning football team and a winning culture. It is a me and everybody else behind me show that Jerry Jones is running. He's running a movie. He's running a sitcom. He is running the NFL's version of Atlanta's Housewives, with the soap opera, with the soap circus that the Cowboys are. Their season is already over, and we haven't even seen them taking a single snap, and you don't need to, because this team has an owner that is not bought in, and he is going out like how Al Davis did with the Raiders. He just has lost all sense of reality. And it sucks to be a Cowboys fan, which is why I asked, how do the Cowboys still have supporters? How can you still put that hashtag up, DC4L, when you have a owner that allows his ego to ruin the potential success of this team and doesn't think that he's the problem? JJ McCarthy is in the most ideal situation that any young quarterback can be in to have a successful career. He got to sit for a year. He now goes into his first season as the full-time starter with an elite offensive line, an elite group of wide receivers led by one of the greatest wide receivers in NFL history, Jay Jettas. He has a good run game with one of the best offensive minds in the game in Kevin O'Connell, and also an elite defense. JJ McCarthy is in a perfectly made situation to have success. So where can all of this go wrong? We saw Trey Lance enter the exact same situation that JJ McCarthy currently is in right now with the Vikings. When the 49ers traded up the farm for Trey Lance and they had him sit for his first season behind Jimmy Garoppolo, they thought that he was the answer to getting over the hump. He was the answer to being able to beat Mahomes in the Super Bowl, and it backfired in their face. They were completely wrong, because they thought that them having a great situation and Kyle Shanahan would ensure Trey Lance would be nothing short of a good quarterback. But with the Trey Lance situation, the NFL learned that not every quarterback that goes into a great situation on paper is actually in a great situation. You see, it's weird how quarterbacks that go to a bad situation and struggle is due to them not being supported well enough. But you can have quarterbacks that are supported with a good group of receivers, a good offensive line, a good play caller on offense, and they can still disappoint, because the expectations of being on a team that is built to win, being a quarterback away from being a Super Bowl winner, puts more pressure on that young quarterback that nobody ever talks about. Nobody ever talks about how the perfect situation can sometimes be the wrong situation, because expectations are what defines you. And the Minnesota Vikings got JJ McCarthy because they wanted to take advantage of having a quarterback on a rookie deal, which allows you to have more cap flexibility to put more good players around that young quarterback and win if he's good right out of the gate. The Vikings have a team that is built to win now. How much patience are the Vikings going to have if JJ McCarthy is inconsistent and he struggles? You don't have all day to develop in the NFL. The NFL is the abbreviation for not for long. The Vikings, when you have a team that knows that they can win a Super Bowl, that knows they're a quarterback away from being able to accomplish that goal, the patience is going to wear thin, whether you want to admit it or not. If J.J. McCarthy gets the Vikings solid quarterback play, they could be in the NFC Championship going up against the Philadelphia Eagles. But if J.J. McCarthy is bad, which there is a high chance he can be bad, because we haven't seen a lot of J.J. McCarthy throwing the football, being asked to win a game with his arm, which Kevin O'Connell is a guy that loves throwing the football around. J.J. McCarthy at Michigan was a handoff merchant. In the NFL, you can't win hiding being a handoff merchant. You got to be able to make the big boy throws. You got to be able to step up and make the big boy plays. And J.J. McCarthy essentially is still a rookie, playing in arguably the toughest division in the NFL. The NFC North is a dogfight. You got the Lions, the Bears, who are going to be really good with Ben Johnson. You got the Green Bay Packers. All of these teams in this division are just as good talent-wise as the Minnesota Vikings. You can make the argument that every team in the NFC North this year can be a Super Bowl contender, and I wouldn't get mad at you. But J.J. McCarthy makes or breaks the Minnesota Vikings this year. The Vikings starting J.J. McCarthy is a gamble. They are putting a Super Bowl on the line, because if he doesn't work out, not only are the Vikings going to be nowhere close of winning the Super Bowl, but they could find themselves going into this upcoming offseason in 2026 asking ourselves, did we get the right guy? Did we make a mistake? When you have a team that's built to win, the expectations are really high. Because when you give a quarterback this much, the development curve is really thin when you have high expectations. When you have a team that you know can win, if you get good quarterback play and you don't get that out of your young quarterback, you're going to start asking questions. Especially if you're Kevin O'Connell and you've made it to the playoffs before with Kirk Cousins and Sam Darnold, who had the best season of his career under you, but yet it doesn't work for J.J. McCarthy. With the talent that we have around him, with this defense, and he still can't get us there, the expectations are high for Minnesota. And if J.J. McCarthy ends up being average, slightly below average, the Vikings are going to be in a similar situation that the 49ers were in with Trey Lance a few years ago. Just because you're in a great situation as a young quarterback doesn't always mean that you aren't going to struggle. It doesn't mean that you can't be a bust. Because even if you're in a good situation, when you have high expectations on a team that knows they can win now, that needs you to play well so they can win now to maximize that Super Bowl window due to you being on a rookie contract, the expectations, the pressure are a lot higher